What else I learned at San Diego Comic-Con? Trek and beyond. Today on episode 410, 410 of Trekland Tuesdays Live with me, Dr. Trek, Larry Nemecek, coming at you here from the heart of Trekland and the home of Portal 47. All of our shows, our live feeds, and of course, TreklandTreks.com. If you are headed to SoCal on business or pleasure, make sure and try to save a day away. Get in touch with me up front, TreklandTreks.com or LarryNemecek.com, and take a wonderful guided tour by Dr. Trek of the places you and I have worked at in advance. A wonderful customized away mission, as it were, to all of the Star Trek location sites we can cram in one day. Well, 4 plus lunch. Love to see you. The summer will go on for months. It'll be tourist season across Southern California for ages, and it'll be a trip you won't forget, I should say. And I think we may even have some Trekland Treksters in the audience today. But anyway, it's great to be back with you. Here I am. I survived yet another. I can't believe how these are piling up, because I used to be the Comic-Con San Diego kid. I think 06. I went for one day in 05 in the middle of the debacle coming out of Enterprise and the Viacom divorce and not knowing what in the world the future was going to bring. And since 06, I've been a regular attendee, thanks in part to my fan bunch around my friend Lee Walkner, who bundled me up and said, no, come to Comic-Con. They have more than comics. And it's scary. It'll be 20 years next year. That's just weird. And it's been 10 years since we did the soft launch of Portal 47 at San Diego Comic-Con. I know, it's wild. Well, I want to talk about it. There's been so much out in the news, of course. I want to talk about some of the things you might not have gotten and some of the things I tried to throw out there already a little bit off the beaten path. And, of course, if you're watching me later on YouTube, please jump in. Your version of the chat is the commentary below. We can keep the conversation going. This may be one of those weeks where we have a lot of conversation to say and do and leave and share. But please do that. And then maybe some Tuesday afternoon, early afternoon Pacific, you can join in with us late afternoon Eastern. Evening time for the UK and Central Europeans. And somewhere in the morning for the Aussies, I think. We'll see. Anyway, thanks so much for being here with us. Again, I'll dive into the chat, but I just wanted to say, so it was interesting. Now, I had my perspective was already in a shift this year, not in a neutral way, because my normal logistics were different. I was staying in a different situation, my nightly. And so big thanks, a shout out there to Giraffe and JC for hooking me up there. So a different entry point, but still, Comic-Con's Comic-Con. Preview night through Sunday. And again, all you that are veterans of Trek cons, it's not Trek. Obviously, it's all the genres, all the time. Comics, sci-fi, movies, books, art, old school comic books with all the Hollywood added, and gaming, and et cetera, and a lot of not genre. Were you Nathan Fillion, who once was on Firefly? Well, there's the billboard for The Rookie. The Rookie is genre TV? No, but it's big TV with a former genre star, and on down the list. You know what I mean? So yeah, you'll see a lot at Comic-Con that's not necessarily comics or much less very con-ish, but there it is. And it's been that way for years, and that's cool. The Hall H excitement. Hall H is just the end of the main convention center that starts off with section A, B, C, D, E, right? And the exhibit floor is marked off in sections because nothing for San Diego beats the size of Comic-Con. It's the biggest single event in San Diego every year. That's why it has a lot of clout, we should say. And Hall H is the section on the end that they can set up, 2,000 chairs? No, it's more than that. 5? But they also has the end of the building access, so you can shuttle in studio people and actors and celebrities, and you could also shuttle the line in from that end. I had not put up much with Hall H as the legend grew over the years, because it was just such a hassle. And I wasn't actively doing press. I go as a professional, not as working press, although I still feel like I'm working press at times. But the last 2 years, Tony at Trek Movie has asked me to sit in and just collect collect data, as they say, collating data, as they say, for you Firefly fans, and just record the audio and take some shots to back up what's coming later. And they have an avalanche. And so I had the Hall H experience on Saturday. It wasn't that harsh. It didn't seem like it was that harsh for congoers either. The days of parking, because here's the big thing, and then I'll dive back and forth. Comic-Con to me this year seemed like a huge preview night, and I had other people that I touch base with agree with me. A huge preview night, which is Wednesday evening, and then the Thursday was huge, and then lots of bodies still on Friday, and maybe a little dip on Saturday, which is obviously usually the peak day of any con, right? And then Sunday, kind of back to a frenzy. I had several vendors who've been around for a while tell me that the sales were really off. Sales were off on Saturday. Thursday was gangbusters, but it seemed like as we got to the traditional peak, it leveled off on Friday. And as someone said, nobody was dropping cash on Saturday. Now, the bodies were there. And someone said maybe that was the Hall H taking a toll all day long. Star Trek had an hour and a half, 12:30 to 2. Of course, you've got blockbusters all day long. Maybe it was all the external factors we're seeing here. I definitely know that foreign tourists and foreign tourism is down. That has a lot to do with everything in the States right now, much less con attendance. And some people, maybe more back east people, weren't thrilled about traveling. But there was a damper in that respect. I think people who were there more for the weekend were down. I've had a couple of sources tell me that the whole convention was down 10%, which is crazy. Usually the tickets you cannot get them. It's hard to get in. You have to know somebody. There are legit ways to do that. And fortunately, I was able to help people. When you have a panel, you have extras, and you're totally legit to have guests on those tickets and those passes. And I'm glad that I was able to help out a few people that way. But I'm just a little me, and it depends on having a panel. If you don't know somebody at a studio or a publisher. And it did feel a little subdued, which means, the floor is not that crowded. Now, look, since even before pandemic, Comic-Con San Diego has looked for ways to stretch out. And so I call it the world's biggest lobby con for you old timers. The lobby con, if you went to, say, the Rio at Vegas and you didn't want to pay for a ticket, sit out in the lobby, sit out by the bars, hotels large and small. If it's a hotel con, you can sit in the lobby, watch the guests go back and forth, see all your friends, whether you couldn't afford to go, you didn't have the time to go, it wasn't worth a ticket, or you just simply could not get a ticket if it was one of those. Lobby conning was the way to go. And I laugh, and you look at the lawn up and down the breadth of the convention center, and you consider the historic Gaslamp District, the entertainment area. It's all the bars and lounges. A few storefronts, gift shops, and tourist stuff too. But the Gaslamp District, the adjoining hotels, now mainly 3, all out there. The con spaces in the hotels are still badged entry, but all the circus and carnival and midway and branded taken over diners and bars and lounges, and things out on the lawn, and especially now on the backside, because the convention center backs up to the inlet, the channel that comes in off the Pacific. And there's a huge marina. The world premiere of Star Trek Beyond almost 10 years ago for the 50th was down at the band shell down at the marina. It has a special name. That was huge. And out the back now, I've noticed there's all kinds of carnival-y branded studios having, walk up. You don't need a badge for that. And they take advantage of that. They're branding and promoting to all the people that don't have a badge, but they're still getting their message across. All the new movies studios are putting up branded bits. A lot of that comes and goes. The IMD boat was not a factor this year. So, budgets come and budgets go. Studios come and go. Hot movies, hot series come and go. And a lot of the flavor was there. It just felt like a little more subdued. I'm not going to take away from the individual excitement, because there's exceptions and spikes. It seemed like there was an expectant mood. I think some people were going, is it just me, or does it seem a little off this year? I don't mean down, not off. Because certainly in some of the panels, I finally got my butt on Sunday at 11 a.m. to go see the great Star Trek comics panel from IDW, and meet people. Some folks I had not ever had the chance to meet, and I did, and I'm thrilled, including Heather Antos, who's been the editor there for so long. She gets an award for licensed Star Trek person in the same job for the longest time. Almost. She's in the top 5 by now. And it was great to see a lot of them as well. My friend Neil Halford, who's the DP on the Con of Wrath, was doing a historical book about a certain game from 30 years ago, rounded up the original creators. It's had 15 lives in Eastern Europe and back here again. And they had a mostly full 300 seat room panel on Sunday at noon. My panel, which I'm thrilled to report on, Friday night, we had folks from 3 of the folks. If you're a Portales, you know this well. Where are they? There we go. So I had the great Dave Trotty and Amy Kate Connolly, who became his wife, and Gary Teschel, who back then was the B camera operator all 4 years of Enterprise, although David was a DGA, Directors Guild trainee on Star Trek VI, and it actually has working time at the end of Next Generation. But he was the Berman era forever. Met Amy Kate as a stand-in and extra. She was Nana Visitor's stand-in for most of the latter part of DS, or the end of DS9, and was an extra many, many times you'd see. And she was a Borg on Regeneration on Enterprise. Anyway, and Gary was there working with Marvin Rush for Enterprise, especially, I think the last of Voyager as well. We had a great 20th anniversary of the end of Enterprise panel, and no, it wasn't just all about the one we love to hate. We talked about family life on set. Amy, Kate, and David had a baby. Mary Howard gave them a baby shower on the mess hall set, catered it on the show's budget because of all the gears that they had put in. No lights, no grips, no electricians on union time and on payroll time had to run the lights. So they did it out of the warmer. Anyway, we had photos from that, especially touching since they had just found those photos and many more from the show days, because Dave and Amy, among the many who lost their home in the Palisades. And David had a huge archive of call sheets and production reports and things. And fortunately, he'd loaned me the Star Trek VI ones years ago for a project. So the Star Trek VI archive of the Trotty archive survives. Everything else, and photos and googie things, tchotchkes and crew gifts and all of that he lost. And it was a huge, I mean, among their actual personal possessions, which were a huge loss. And again, among a few thousand other folks in the Palisades and in Altadena, the Eden Fire. But there, David is, boy, he shows why he's such a great assistant director, because it's like whatever happens, we slog, we do the best planning we can do, and then we rise to meet the emergencies. And that's all you can ask for of an AD, and to be a great people person as well. We had a wonderful panel. We were 90% full in our 300 at 6 o'clock on Friday night. And then at 7 went over for the Roddenberry and fandom.com, i.e. the Memory Alpha folks, for a great Roddenberry podcast in celebration of Memory Alpha that was had 200 seats go in a flash, or I would have promoted it more. 10 minutes they were all gone when they first offered it over on Fandom. So, you know, there's spikes and fun things happening, good things happening. One of the great things was no one knew what this crazy Star Trek dance thing was going to be. I I was like, okay, I'm prepared for anything. Will it be a nice try? No, you can see the videos. I put up live video. Star Trek has now come up with, the studios put up a nice edited version. It was amazing. It was kind of a dance ballet choreographed with audio clips to the first 4 episodes of this season. Now, you say the first 4. Yes, because we've all seen the first 3. The 4th episode, Space Time Adventure Hour, or whatever it was, Space Adventure Mystery Hour, whatever. A Space Adventure Hour, I should say, episode 304, was pre-screened during the hour and a half. So in the hour and a half time, the nearly hour took up the hour middle without credits at the beginning and end. So that shaves some time. So 50 minutes, let's say, of that hour and a half of the 90 went to screening Space Adventure Hour. So everyone in there in Hall H saw it. And then you had 20 minutes at the front for the stand-up for Strange New, and then 20 minutes at the end to finally introduce the Academy cast. Now, look, everybody else and their dog is telling you all the news from that. I just want to say it was great to finally see that poor cast. And I say that poor cast. Holly Hunter was thrilled to see her Star Trek family fan audience out there. I know that. Bob Picardo did the emceeing for both of these. Alex Kurtzman, and of course, Roga was there for her, and Akiva and Henry were there for Strange New as producers. But it was fun to see, especially the young kids, the young cast there, because it was their first experience. What's amazing is Karis and Bella, who were two women in the cast, two young women in the cast, were guests for the Universal Fan Nights opening. And I felt a little bad because I thought no one knows who they are. That's good. They're getting them out in public on the red carpet. But it was just those kids, that cast, started shooting this a year and a half ago. And talk about the long, and they would have been earlier had it not been for the strikes, not COVID, but for the strikes. They would have started shooting months earlier than they did. Same as Strange New. Except they were starting from scratch. They weren't a well-oiled machine. And what I've been hearing about the show, I'll just say from a couple of people that I trust who have been with the modern era of Trek for a long time, since before Brian left on Discovery. And they are very high on Academy. Did I say this? One of the opinions was that Academy is going to be everything Discovery wanted to be and couldn't. So there you go. So now the secret's out. Everybody knows they have a ship, the USS Athena. It's going to be docked at the Academy. They have indeed moved the Academy back to San Francisco. This is post-burn. It's the first Academy classes and class strike. Now, you saw Tilly with some provisional cadets kind of scrounging, but this is the first time they've come back to San Francisco. And yes, the cadets have the training ship. Aha, looking at you, USS Republic and USS Enterprise for Rathacon. And this cast lineup is very diverse. We've got a series acclamation mill. Sam is Sam. We've got newly created holograms. So there's a tie there with the doctor. We've got a Klingon cadet who wants to be a doctor. We've got we have a couple of humans in here. We have a couple of new species, and most of all, we are going to get answered about Klingon. Now, Paul Giamatti was not there in person, but we find out that his hybrid Klingon. People said, "Where's the Klingons?" In the post-burn time, the last few seasons. Well, now we're going to find out. But apparently, a lot of Klingons are interspecies. They're nomadics. The interspecies. Paul Giamatti's character is part Klingon and part Tellarite. That's what my headline coming out of Saturday. You can watch all the other mess. I fell off my chair to hear that. And of course, all these press releases went out even closer to panel time than usual, because apparently one of the overseas websites that deals in Trek news, and I'm not talking about Trek Culture, our friends over there, one of the other sites was leaking everything ahead of embargo times. So everybody got their news releases right at release time live in the show. So that's why everything hit you like a ton of bricks all at once. It was exciting to see. So Karis Brooks, who's the bouncy, excited one, actually teared up. The cast had not seen that trailer until that time on stage. So they literally, it's one of those where all the actors turn around and they're watching the screen. And you're seeing their reactions in live time when the lights come up. And of course, the big screen is behind them. So even folks in the back are watching the big screens. And, it's one of those setups. And it was pretty cool. It was somewhat breath. Oh, by the way, Paul Giamatti's character's name is Nus Braca. Okay, fine. Now, recurring is going to be Odette Fair. It'll be Admiral Vance at times. Tig Notaro, Picardo, and I thought Mary Wiseman, but I'm not seeing that here. Maybe not so much now. Zoe Steiner is going to be a Betazoid and daughter of the president of Beta Z. Gina Yashir is going to be a Klingon Jem'Hadar hybrid, who is the Chancellor's first officer and cadet manager. She's the head of the academy. And there we go. So all that stuff is out there. The news is out. All the news sites are covering everything. It's another batch of new actors and new character names to catch up with. So there's that. It's a pleasure that, might be on its last legs now. We've had the Paramount Skydance deal finally approved 3 days before South Park went off on its tear. Of course, the words South Park are coming out of our mouth because of how it affects eventually Star Trek in the future. People are worried about that. There was a little bit of that talk at Comic-Con, but it was so much news headline coming that was in our faces. Some of the mumbling was a little bit about did Skydance just say, yeah, whatever? Or is this going to be a colder turn for what Star Trek means? I'm just as much wondering if there'll be a lessening on the TV side and turning back toward movies. I mean, there's the political end of this, philosophically political. Will it go more conservative? Less a celebration of DEI, which is Star Trek. I know. And we have the old, what do you mean Star Trek wasn't political? That whole thing can come up. That's down the pike. Right now, no pun intended as usual, but right now celebrating these things and the trailer for Khan finally. A little wacko. How do you trailerize an audio drama? They say podcast. Podcast to me is people yapping. Yeah, an audio drama. We've had a couple of experiments with this, but this will be this. But it's going to be dropped weekly starting Star Trek Day, working through November. Works out to 9 weeks. Are they half-hour segments, 15-minute segments? Originally, it was going to be a 3-part mini-series movie Nick Meyer himself was writing. 2 hour and a half, 2 hours every night. What are you talking about? 4 to 6 hours? It's transmogrified into a podcast. 9 episodes, 10. If it's the same amount of time, 6 hours into not, half hours? Whatever. We'll see. We will see what is seen. Announcing the cast, Tim Russ is playing Tuvok, and George is going to be Captain Sulu, so it's back in that time. Do we have keys to the Excelsior? No, that would be in the middle, right? Sulu's still with the Enterprise, the trainees that wind up with Kirk on the training ship for Wrath of Khan, if you remember. And Tuvok was an ensign with Sulu on the Excelsior a few years later, correct? But Tuvok is long-lived. We'll see where he fits in, and a whole cast beyond that. So it was a pleasant surprise to see a trailer. Don't know if it was the most sophisticated trailer, but there you go. You're watching everybody react. You're seeing all the trailers, the Star Trek news. I don't want to pile on to what's out there aside from the puppets. I got no problem with puppets. I think the biggest problem, because I think people trust Jim Henson and the Muppets to do quality work. We've saw, if you remember Pigs in Space, but I think we trust them when they interact with known franchises. There's a lot of respect and carryover from the Henson Company. And we have seen, I know some people had their quibbles and still, but I think the vast majority of fandom was happy with the crossover with those old scientists, and more than happy, judging by music sales, with Starship or Subspace Rhapsody, the musical. So I think people's biggest problem here has been you've only got, I think I counted it up, you've got 7 slots left this year that we haven't seen. They've been produced. But beyond what we've even seen, you've got 10, which are now wrapping up. And then you've got 6. So of the unproduced, you've got 16, although 10 are accounted for. They've just wrapped up filming on the 10. So now you've got whatever they do with those 10, much less the remaining 6 here. And then they've got a whole new batch of 6 to write, to wrap things up, do whatever. I think people are just a little miffed that they're using them on novelty episodes. Not so much a deal if you had 26 a year for 7 years. And wondering about this whole Kiva's plea to wind up with Strange New and go to Star Trek Year 1. You all have watched me long enough. The Portales hear this all the time. You hear me say it on, well, here. At any other venue I can if I'm a guest. I want to get to the other corner. If it's strange new worlds and new civilizations, I want to see some of them. New life and I want to see some of them. I want to see new life in our Starfleet and Federation history, in our galactic history. I don't want to keep revisiting. It has nothing to do with reboot. I trust them to find suitable actors to replace Dee and Leonard and Bill, or Patrick and Brent, or whatever. I just don't want to. Can we go? There is so much else out there yawning chasmic. So I know Akiva has had this dream of recreating the first year of Star. Does he realize that McCoy will not be part of that? And neither will Uhura? Just to say, on the Enterprise, she must leave and come back around, or else she was down below decks during Where No Man. I don't know. She goes to command for a little bit and comes back. Are we going to be literal? No. And I think the most mumbling about the puppet reaction has been folks just worried about the number of slots diminishing. And do you really want to do that? On the reverse side, when Manny Koto only had 20, make that 18 for the last year of Enterprise, and they crammed so many direct TOS callbacks, he was just trying to make up for what should have been happening all along. He had a list of what he wanted to get to. I fully endorsed his list after retroactively. And he only had the one thing he didn't get to was Starbase 1. And then the plans for the next season, having Shran be a regular and all that. I'm dancing over to Enterprise days because I was totally happy with what they did with their little 20 episodes and cramming a lot of the TOS references and setups in, because that's what Enterprise was supposed to be. In my humble opinion, that's what I wanted of prequels. Now, it didn't have to be every single episode. But like he said, the late, great Manny Koto said, I only had 18 slots. It wasn't my idea to have so few to play with. I would have sprinkled them in. Yeah. So it was a pretty good reaction. It was by the time they got warmed up, a couple of times everybody had to it's interesting about Star Trek and Hall H. It's never been the screaming Mimi reaction. But then you know what, guys? What do all the vendors tell me? What do maybe you know in your gut? For years, everyone has said, oh, Star Trek has the nicest fandom. I don't think Star Trek has the screaming Mimi Hall H type of fandom. They're too busy listening and soaking it in. Just a thought. I had not put it that way before, but just a thought. So yes, the Lodge was over there. The network branding was not based on Star Trek this year. For one thing, peak Star Trek has dipped down just as peak TV has. They're leaning into Paramount Mountain for their advertising, the focus. And it was predictably bland. Would you rather promote Star Trek or promote Paramount Mountain and be clever about it? So the Paramount booth on the floor was a game. There was one screen showing. Nobody from the cast, I don't think, came by. Maybe they did on the run. No, the Lodge was over in Gaslamp. And again, it was not a museum show as we've had in the past with the Kelvin movies or with Picard or with Discovery and all the costumes and props and all that. And knowing that it was the first stop of a line that might go to New York Comic Con or go to the cruise. No, Star Trek had an interactive bit with what you will see if you have not had a chance to see it on Space Adventure Hour. One of the sets that's kind of goofy, some interactivity over there. Cast had that as a place to go because on Saturday, what I had no expectation of was the street dance, which turned out to be really a choreographed kind of dramatic ballet, if you will, with bits and pieces from the first 4 episodes. We even had a couple of space zombies, right, from episode 3. A lot of really cool bits from Space-Time Adventure Hour, which, again, if you had been in Hall H, you know about, or if you've got a screener. Otherwise, people just enjoyed it and saw a couple of moments. There was some really sweet choreography. I went over after it and met the choreographer and talked to her for a minute. Stay tuned. And I was very much surprised and turned about the whole thing. I was holding my breath. I had a low bar, and I thought they nailed it. It was a very sweet homage to the franchise, much less those episodes, and even some of the characters. They didn't go all out to be the characters, the leads, but they were imbibing them. And you could tell there was specific casting for things because they had audio clips and there was some miming of lines and a lot of dancing. And yeah. They did Jitterbug. I keep calling it. Wake me up before you go. At the end, 2 performances in front of the lodge back to back. The second performance, they brought the cast after their Hall H day, after all the press they did after, came over, and you've seen those photos too, and it was great. And I kept wondering, and I've stuck behind. We had no clue, but I do have video watching them all enjoy that. All of them really enjoyed it. Yeah, and at one point, Jess and Chrissy jumped out and danced on Jitterbug, on Go Go, the Wham song. Not my generation, kids, but okay. Love the music. I'm just saying, instant recall. The one-hit wonders and such of the 80s. Not my Jeopardy category, okay? But that was cute. That was awesome. It's always good to see actors getting to do that. The first timers, and that's a thing that I look forward to. That's why it was so thrilling. No, it was so sweet to see the Starfleet Academy cadets at their first big moment. And even, I mean, you got to say, Holly Hunter was just a little bit, as short as she is, up next to those guys. It was something else to see. Now look around the lot elsewhere. I went to the nacelle. I've gotten to get to know Brian Volk-Weiss at Nacelle, the Center Seat series and other things. This toy line that he's come out, this action figure line that they've done for years, starting with famous comedians, Legends of Laughter. Their own franchise, Microbites from Mars, etc., or for that. But when they got the Trek license, people are so thrilled because he's doing figures that you've not seen before. Characters that never got a figure. Thank you, red buttons. And other figures that are dressed in costumes that you never, in uniforms, whatever, that you never saw them in before. And the first wave is amazing. I'm so tickled for the Captain Garrett, among other things. But they had a reveal on top of that. And these are like, whatever, $28 things. I just want to show you. He had a funny reveal using Sirach. They did a countdown on Sunday. See, we're finally, what's in the box? What's in the box? And for some reason, this is Larry Nemecek approved, which no one consulted me, but I do. It's amazing. You look at it, and it's the way they do all their figures come with 2 or 3 props. They take fan input on which characters. They're up to wave 4. The first wave won't be released until September. So here's Nichelle Uhura with a phaser rifle. Now, you pacifists might say, no, don't give her a phaser, but you feminists will say, hell yeah, kick ass. But then there's also a Vulcan Lyrette or Lyre or whatever, Lute, whatever you want to call it, from whatever era you came to. But the sculpting is great. Look at this face. I said, that is the sorry neither Nichelle Uhura face. Isn't that incredible? So a huge shout out to Brian and the other Brian, head of promotions there at their all their figures that they're doing. And right across from them, you may have seen, I hope you find video of this. I shot video, I haven't posted it. Lego's booth was right there. They did this huge, 10 foot by 20 foot. And this is just a fraction. I have video, but no stills. They did the convention center, starting with the front, the palm trees, buses, lines outside. And what's hysterical is on one side, on the big steps in the middle, they had a little cosplay group with some group all wearing yellow t-shirts and green helmets. But there were about 20 of them, and then there's a little row of photographers in front taking their, like, it's a meetup for a photo op group. Anyway, there was so much. And then the inside, they had all these booths, and of course there was Lego represented, but they had tons of booths and things. You'll see the videos. And over in one corner, they had a programming room. So I guess it was Ballroom 20, because it was the masquerade contest. and they had a little table with trophies and people in all different kinds of costumes and photographers down in front and a backstage area. It was amazing. It was huge. It was huge. So much to do it. So much there at Comic-Con. I had a couple of stuff. Yeah, you try to have meetups with people that you see and don't see. He came down for his panel that was cross. I swear to God, there are like 6 or 7 panels with Star Trek in the name. And of 6 or 7 out of 5 days and all these hundreds and thousands of people, it had to be cross overlapping with my 2. So I miss seeing the Star Trek versus Star Wars with our friends Dr. Drea and Dr. Ali. Yep, my co. So we did manage to meet up at the street dance, totally on 10 minutes notice, by accident, serendipitously. So Ali and I, we got a meetup that I haven't posted that either. I'm behind on my posting. But it was interesting to hear the reports. So Star Trek, I think, equipped itself just fine. I thought it was going to be a subdued year. You know, they're not cranking out 4 or 5 shows to promote now. So each one they had the luxury of showing that. I wondered how they'd fill up an hour and a half with only 2 shows. Okay, they squeezed in a 2-minute con trailer. No one representing it, right? Shout out to David Mack and Kirsten Beyer, 2 old friends of ours that wound up taking over the story from Nick and finalizing it for the podcast, for the multi-chaptered podcast approach. So yay for that and that news to be there. But yeah, it was a pretty cool day. If you were at the street dance and other places, you got your own little Strange New Worlds. They gave out tons of these to both audiences and a third audience over by Petco Park. Yeah. Yes, the lodge. So, you know, corporately, the fixtures of Comic-Con for Star Trek seemed a little the booth, the lodge, although the lodge had a fun bit, but it was only partly Star Trek and promoting other Paramount Plus TV shows. Okay, fine. Star Trek was what was bringing the draw of the promotion. Star Trek was what was bringing the media, bringing the fans. And I got to say, again, the street dance, I hope the videos do it justice. I hope my live did it justice. I was at a good place for the live, not so much to be in front of the actors as they watched it. And you were squeezed in. That was a pleasant surprise. Whatever the marketing formula that came up with the Starship is landing, whatever, you know, when you have the committee approach to things, sometimes it doesn't go well. But whatever, I'm going to be interested to see what the creative history and genesis of that was, because they'd obviously put a lot of time and effort, rehearsed, had the costumes, had the bits down. And I just want to say shout out to Stephanie, who was a choreographer, and her studio in LA. Wonderful job. Totally exceeded my expectations. And I hope they're getting good feedback. I hope all up and down the line, everybody at the studio and connected with that project and promoting Trek at Comic-Con takes kudos back. That was a pleasant surprise. Not to top Hall H, but it was really good. And the course gang, the main thing, it was out on the street, out right in the middle of Gaslamp, right there on 5th Street, 4th Street, and you got mobs of people walking by that have no clue about Star Trek. It was, I don't know if they have tangible ways to measure this, but it was one of the best. You know, they had 3 performances, one over by Pepco at the interactive space, and then a couple right there in front of the lodge where they just backed off everybody and shut the, you had to walk way around if you wanted to ignore it, get somewhere else. But it had to be a great way to throw a taste, an exciting, modern, but very much on the nose taste of Star Trek for the mundanes. And I say the mundanes, it's Comic-Con. So only 3% of those folks were unlucky mundanes who were stuck working, that couldn't care about any of this. But the rest was a Comic-Con geeky audience seeing what modern Trek had to offer there in a fresh way. And all those snappy, young, attractive dancers, male and female, with a very personal, a lot of clever bits, a lot of clever costume changes, things. Someone prearranged from the audience to be at Spock's fake wedding. Our friend Giraffe was the bride at the. She was the bride at the interactive, the first performance. I haven't seen. That's one thing that you're reading the reactions online to all the news. I haven't had a chance to dig in. If somebody else has, or maybe if somebody in the chat has seen the videos of the dance and you have a reaction, or you have a reaction to the puppets. Whatever you want to talk about today, we can get into it. The season, meanwhile, keeps unspooling. I should say there were other great merchandise bits out there. Factory Entertainment's there. Of course, they're going to be at Jordan and his company are going to be at Vegas. What else? Several other. I'm leaving folks out. Looking forward to seeing our Fansets friends at Vegas that aren't here. Miles at tribbles.com. They've got some new alien plushies that aren't Tribbles particular, but he was one who's had a booming Wednesday, Thursday, and then not so much Friday, Saturday, and then a boom Sunday. So go figure. What does that mean overall? Well, again, these big picture trends about foreign tourists, about travel in general, about people's mood about spending money. Because it's not just about buying stuff on the dealer's room floor. It's about getting yourself there and the travel, right? And the meals and all of that. What's the mood of folks? There were still people walking around with the huge bags of boxes of model kits or Lego boxes or whatever. Still had all of that. We had a couple of observations that maybe overall cosplay itself seemed to be down. Not as quite as much just lots of Fantastic Four outfits. They all seem to be number 4. It's amazing. No one ever wants to be one. But cosplay overall, now you saw Galactus, the huge guy in the robots, however they were, doing that, made some picture headlines. Lots of imagery out from that. And there's always the share. But it did seem like the cosplay was a little subdued. Maybe it was a little too much on the cost end for a lot of our regular cosplayers. The people are staying local and not making the national trip if they do. I think it was a little, you say a word like overall, Trek and beyond. You use a word like subdued and not quite as boisterous. You use phrases like that with caution because there were certainly people having the time of their life. Certainly people enjoying and excited to be there, to see actors, to see merch, to talk to the creators of either one. Certainly the press industrial complex is chomping away at all this, and the studio promotion machines of Trek and everything else are out there in full gallop. Again, I was thrilled to see my friend Neil's panel be full, right? And their signing line, they ran through the signing card. The book comes out, his history comes out in December. And the signing cards, they ran through. Who'd have thought? I don't know, they had 200, 300 signing cards. Ran through them all, ran out, had exactly enough for the last person in line. So on what, it's kind of like, what side are you in? There are folks I missed getting to see. Nana Visitor was down signing her book on the women of Star Trek. We'll see her at Vegas, I think. Meanwhile, though, I'm going to say goodbye here for everybody watching us live and later, watching us later on YouTube. And of course, to start off, got to thank all of our TTLers. Thank you, Patreoners. Thank you, Chuck A., James Kerwin, Diana Hopkins, Halbert Gunjohnson, Lawrence Todd, Chris Jiggins, Justin Weir, Andrew Jazimski, Josh Patton, Pranakasha Productions, Keith Rombach, Comedy Forecast. Hey, and our live wires, Robert McLean, Byron Bailey, Jesse at Crusher Convo, Gary Williams, J.R. Poole, Brandon Coles, Dan Leckie, Dave Gregory, Chris Garris, and Casey Shafsky. Thanks so much, everybody. If you want to jump in on my very simple Patreon, thank you so much. It's $5 and $10 a month. It's patreon.com/Trekland Live. Really appreciate if you would jump in to do that. It's a shout out. The $10 folks get access to the first few years of our Portal 47 backstage, creative recordings, which go at least an hour, if not longer. The folks who, you never get to hear from, or if you do, you've heard from them once, maybe. Really appreciate that, gang, for everybody who can jump in and do that. I'm just making sure that yes, I did. Just a few things I wanted to pull out. Hey, the Trek Files, is on hiatus. We will be back, in about a month with season 14. We've got a great, great, great season premiere planned. Another anniversary moment from this year. I know, you didn't think there were so many anniversaries this year, but there are. So, meanwhile, it's a perfect time to go back to our friends' handiwork at Memory Alpha with Wikia, which is a fandom.com company. And the Trek Files is there, all of its 13 season glory, 24 shows a season. Go back, scroll through. It's all easily accessible now, and the guests and the hot links, the documents of the week. It's all very easy to get to at thetrekfiles.com or wherever fine podcasts are sold, but you can get everything, including the documents, at Memory Alpha. Really appreciate it. Don't forget also that if you want to join our dedicated community for the Trek Files, it's Trek Files only, although I go off on tangents. Every other Monday, we have Trekophiles Tonight at 4 p.m. I'll be doing Trekophiles Tonight right after I do the special Monday edition of Tuesdays Live next Tuesday. You can get access to Trekophiles Tonight, our Trek Files boards on Discord, and all the Roddenberry podcasts and their Discord families and message boards. It's as little as $1 a month at the Mission Log Patreon. So you want to check that out. Just go to Patreon and check out Mission Log, and you can get in for $1 a month. That's going to do it, gang. Hang on for the chat later. Of course, everybody can catch me at Larry Nemecek on Twitter X and Blue Sky especially. It's Larry's Trekland on Facebook and, Instagram. Please come over there. I live streamed the dance. I also live streamed my 25-minute walk from where you can get out in an Uber all the way down and in and out in the front of the whole Comic-Con complex, the convention center and beyond. You might want to take a look at my Instagram. If you've got 25 minutes to spill, I did it Sunday morning at 10 a.m., so not the hugest numbers, but it's the feet and yards and half miles are the same. Yeah. Check that out too at my Instagram. Of course, portal47.net. Your backstage pass to everything Backstage Trek is there for you too. All right, gang, that's it for me now. If you're leaving us right now, please, again, leave a comment below. Try to check us on a Tuesday, or at least look for us next time. Like and subscribe and share. Tell your friends our Dr. Trek point of view. Enjoy all of the Comic-Con news. Buckle up, buccos, because Trek Vegas is right around the corner. And while you're doing all that, please, please stay healthy. Do all the things. Please, please, please stay woke. Check the sources. And Trek well, everybody.